right. Now the Nick's gone, we can get to some real business.
Hey, Coach, can you talk a little bit about Jalen Williams, what it means to your defense? And secondly, when you look at Michigan State, what are some things that stand out, especially new coach, new coordinator, and new quarterback compared to last year?
Yeah. Jalen Williams, he's had a pick in every game that we've played thus far, which is pretty outstanding. I do think, to me, he is playing at such a high level just in the fundamentals of what we ask him to do from a coverage perspective and really a physicality perspective. I mean, you think of all three of our corners where they're not just monster-sized guys out there, but boy, they're physical. And I think it shows up, and I think it's a big deal when you put those things on tape, especially as a quote-unquote undersized DB. For him to play like that, and for those other two guys to play like that has been awesome to see, both in the run and pass game. Thinking about Michigan State, it's interesting. Their offensive coordinator, Jay Johnson, was my offensive coordinator at Southern Miss whenever I was first there, before Larry Fedora took over going into my junior season. And then their offensive line coach, Chris Kapelovic, was my offensive line coach. And then I worked under him as a graduate assistant, working with the offensive line at Southern Miss. So, know those guys well. Really Cap taught me the game offensively in terms of offensive line play, and I probably wouldn't be the defensive coordinator I am without him, and in terms of my understanding what offenses are trying to do and know how to attack things and all that stuff. So I did text him last night. I said, you shouldn't have taught me anything. We'll try to use it against you as best I can. But, that they're schematically, they do a really good job. They try to move people around and spread you out in ways to get the ball in the run game and in their passing game to their playmakers. And, I think, to me, it's about building a program for them, and as they're moving forward, I think you see some guys that are really talented, and you see some guys that can make plays out of their backfield, and they've already proven against the team we played Saturday in Michigan. I mean, they can make plays downfield, and so very impressed with what they do. Obviously, I know those guys and what they do schematically, and they've both been successful in their own right at a lot of different places. So it'll be intriguing to see how they continue to grow their offense. I mean, you're always alert for new things that they're going to bring week to week in a new system.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Hey, brother.
Can I ask you kind of two questions? First one, you talked about the physicality of your defense. You guys completely shut down their running game. Can you remember a time as a defensive coach when the team came in running like they had and you absolutely shut them down? And secondly, how pleased were you with how the team finished, getting that pick late? I know Coach has talked about that, Coach Allen. And you guys finished, Monster gets the pick, and then the offense closes it out and bleeds the clock out.
Yeah, big deal. From a rushing perspective, I mean, that to me, I think is a tribute to the physicality of 11 players in the Swarm D out there on the field. And again, when you watch when they tried to establish a run game, the physicality that we brought from every level, I think, is what stands out to me. Certainly there were defensive linemen that were knocking him back and were pushing him around in the backfield, and that was awesome to see. But linebackers stepping up and making plays, safeties coming in and making support fits, and corners just, absolutely physical off the edge was awesome to see. Probably only had one other time. When I was at South Alabama, we played Troy after they had beat LSU and rushed for about 250. I think we held them to like 33 yards, and it felt like that again, where it was just a physically dominant game. And again, I've had that feeling twice, and I'd love to have it a third time. It was a good feeling. And then what was your other question?
Just about closing out the game. I know that's been
Yeah.
Coach Allen, the defense and the offense working together to close out a big win. You guys did that with Monsters pick and then the offense taking over and running the clock out.
So, to me, that is the thing. If you go back, and I know we've talked about this before, but if you look back at our production as a defense really. A number of our points, even against Purdue, Tennessee, and then in the first 2 games of our season have come off of 2-minute drives. And not necessarily 2 minutes at the end of the game or end of a half, but when those teams were down and they were moving the ball like 2 minute, that's where we have given up the most points in our last 5 matchups. And so for us, it was this cloud, you know what I mean, more or less, that we've been trying to get rid of defensively. And I think, we talk about good defenses, right? Execute in first, second, third quarter, all those things, right? But great defenses finish, and I thought that we did that in this game, and it was a big deal for us to be able to go execute at that level at the end. We didn't do everything right, and we gave up too many explosive plays. But when the game was on the line at the end. I thought our guys executed and finished, and that, to me, from a momentum standpoint, we've got to build off of that. It was a huge momentum for our defense.
Tom Brew. I was listening to the radio show last week, and you were talking about how, Tom being such a detail-oriented guy and a defensive coach has made you a better coach, and you've, learned so much, kind of operating under him. I was asking Tom, and he said, that the Tennessee game was exactly what he wanted to see from the defense in terms of what it looks like and how you guys play. I mean, what do you remember from that game, and what have you guys carried forward? And then also just in terms of being on the same page in terms of what you bring and when. Do you feel like you're thinking about Tom would bring a blitz in this situation, this type of blitz he would like, or are you just kind of throwing out what you like?
That's an interesting question. Obviously in the moment, right, you can't go, hey, what would Tom do here? But that being said, right, him and I are very in sync with what we want to do defensively. And I think that takes time to get your minds wrapped around what our personnel is and what we want to accomplish. I thought we were most in sync last season going into that bowl preparation in terms of what we wanted to get done collectively. And I think schematically we have carried a lot of that same concept, just built off of it from that game plan against Tennessee. And that really has built us into who we're trying to be defensively moving forward. Again, the system is the system, and we've always been multiple, and we have creative ways to get to things. We're just utilizing certain coverages with certain pressures, and we did tweak some things in the offseason to allow us to be more creative in the front and yet simple in what we're trying to do in the back end coverage, and just mix the coverages with some of those interior pressures. So I like where we're at. I think we're moving in the same direction and on the same page. And I think, it is my job. I've told you guys this before, right? But it's my job not to be the best defensive coordinator that I envision, but to be the best defensive coordinator that Tom Allen wants for this program. And I am trying to work relentlessly to do that day in and day out.
Tom and Kevin?
Kane, 3-0 is great, but does it mask a little bit the fact that they threw for 344 and scored 21, and there were some breakdowns and such? And as you review that game, were those big plays that they did hit? Was it communication, coverage? Where did you find the flaws there?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good question. To me, when you give up 9 explosive plays for 243 yards, that was unacceptable. And credit what our guys did, and I thought we made, there's a lot of things to be excited about when you can eliminate somebody's run game. That's a big deal, and when you can get off the field on third downs and get 7 3-and-outs, all those things are great. But to me, we've got to do a better job as a 2-minute defense consistently. We found a way to finish, and even when we, got a takeaway taken away with what we thought was a sack caused fumble, and then we got to go back out on the field again and got another takeaway. That to me is awesome. But we were inconsistent in our 2-minute execution in the third quarter, and then obviously that other score I think was in the fourth quarter there. and they were already running 2-minute offense, obviously, at that point because they were down. And we had some inconsistencies on our back end that fundamentally we didn't execute, or schematically we had a couple of errors. And really, they made some nice throws, but when you go back and look at those things, either fundamentally or schematically, we didn't execute to the level of consistency that we need to in those situations. So that is on the forefront of every member of the Swarm D this week.
Coach, can you hear me or no, or am I still mute?
Nope, got you, brother.
Okay, got you. Okay, the, pressure, in the Michigan game, it seemed like you got a little bit more from the four-man rush. You've obviously been pretty good in terms of dialing up at, blitzes and so forth. How important is that gonna be going forward, just to kind of, get that pressure and be able to drop guys back and not have to blitz all the time to get to the quarterback?
To me, I mean, that's obviously that's been the missing link in our defense, right? Is to be able to get a pressure out of a 4-man rush, or in that case, it was a 3-man rush that James Head was able to get off the edge. And for us, it's something that we continue to work towards. We've got to be able to play coverage and not pressure every time. I think the way in which we're pressuring that we're able to play a base coverage on the back end, which is something that in the past we haven't done as much. It's either been rush and play coverage, or pressure and play man-to-man. And so we're creating more negative plays and takeaways because we're bringing somebody as a quote-unquote simulated pressure and then being able to play coverage behind it. But there's a time and a place where you just need to go 4-man rush or 3-man rush and drop 7 or 8. Certainly in the game the other day, it got to that point to where we needed to do that. And what an awesome deal for a guy like James Head, who just works so hard in our defense. Again, he's not the most talented guy out there on the field, but he continues to work, and I thought he made an awesome play. And just he to me is another one of those guys that is just relentless and continues to get better and better out there on the field.
Kane, kind of along those lines, but I think I'm not positive about this, but I think it's possible that you only rushed 3, that James Head sack and then the Joe Milton interception throughout the second half. But I know Coach Allen talks about this being a pressure defense. You talk about wanting to be able to bring pressure, bring blitzes. I guess how much does it open up for you, though, when you can put on film for opponents, Indiana, that you can bring 3 and still make big plays. You can bring 3 men and still get a sack. You can bring 3 and get a pick. It's something that maybe isn't as used as often for you guys because you do have sort of a base 4-down lineman, but that you can bring 3 and still make plays.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is as you get up and as you start to play more 2-minute defense, which obviously that's a great thing, right? You want to be able to play 2-minute defense and be in position to where an offense feels like they have to move the ball downfield or into the third and fourth quarter. But you got to have some more tools in your tool belt rather than just bring pressure every time, right? You can't throw haymakers for 15 rounds. So that being said, right, I think that to me was exciting to see us be able to drop 8 and still get pressure. Both those calls were the interception with Jalen Williams and the sack was a 3-man rush with a spy on the quarterback in 1 and a drop coverage, drop 8 concept on the interception play. So that being said, right, to be able to mix those things in is huge. We're always going to be a pressure defense, and the ability to pressure both in man and zone coverage has been huge for us. But the ability to drop 7 or 8 in coverage and rush, I think we are taking steps in the right direction.
All right, thanks, Ken.
All right, thanks, guys.